obviously I loved what I did before when I was at Google, but there's a difference when it's yours and when it's kind of your butt on the line to make it happen. It's not of, oh, if the project fails, it's okay, we'll just find another role. It's like your livelihood behind this. And so it makes every single decision, every single turning point, every person that you hire, every partner that you make, 100 times more critical to get it right.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Female Founder World. I'm your host, Jasmine, and today's chat is with Jacquelle Horton, the founder of Fave. Jacquelle, welcome to the show. To kick us off, could you please just let people know what your mission is at Fave and some milestones that you've reached that can help people understand where you're at in your founder story and what stage the company is at now?
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here as well to chat with your audience. So at Fave, we are a social platform that is dedicated to passionate fans. So we have these fans come in and connect with each other. They can bond with like-minded fans from across the entire world. They can create content to kind of share their fan stories. They can earn points throughout their activity on the platform where they can prove their top fan status and kind of make sure that they share that they're kind of the ones to be elevated and can gain that recognition. And then we also have a marketplace where that marketplace is where fan-to-fan commerce can happen. So fans can say, I am creating this bracelet for all fans to wear during a virtual concert, or I have these custom Nike shoes with lyrics on them, or a lamp with a certain artist's kind of classic pose on it. And this is where fans can not only show off the work that they've been inspired to create from their favorite artist or creator, but other fans can support them in doing so and have that support extend to the creator that they love as well, because we partner with the creators to let them monetize their fans' activity. And so from all of this, I'd say our mission really wraps up into allowing these fans to just unapologetically obsess over what they love in a safe haven where they know that their kind of school friends, won't be judging them, or their coworkers won't be judging them. It's really just these people who can come together and just connect without having to explain anything. It's like, I just get it, right? And so where we are so far in the journey is earlier this year, we launched our beta where we had one fandom, and then recently launched another fandom where throughout that time we were really learning and just putting stuff out to see what stuck so that we can understand how to iterate and kind of move on from there. We did a ton of user research in the beginning and then applied that to develop the product that we went out with. Some of the early milestones that we saw are kind of exciting metrics, right? So like one of them really speaks to how much people are leaning in to the platform, where we saw 7.81 visits per day. And these are people coming back to the platform consistently each day. The only other app that has something like that is TikTok, which is 8. And that's the most engaging app in the world right now. So we see people really leaning into this. The other one that we're seeing is a 91% engagement rate, where, again, 91% of the time they're coming and doing something. And that something also has an average of 43 screens per session. And so this is people, flipping through the feed, and they're going to other fans' profiles and going to chat rooms and really leaning into engage. And so all of this has come from the Swifties launch that we had in the beginning, and then the BTS Army launch, and where we saw a lot of this momentum and excitement. And it has been amazing to just dive in and learn about these fandoms and really see them thrive on the platform. So lots of learning and so much more ahead to do as well.
Wow, there's so much to dig in there. Those metrics are really impressive. Could we just rewind a minute and could you let people know a little bit about your professional background and how you what your path was to launching this company?
Of course, yeah. So I worked most recently at Google for 7.5 years. 5 of those years I spent at YouTube. Before then, I was elsewhere in the music industry. I had worked at a label for a little bit. I interned at Universal. I worked for a serial entrepreneur where I saw him start a bunch of businesses and kind of watched the pros and cons and the challenges that happen in starting a business, and was able to get ahead of them when I applied them in my own journey. I worked under Viacom at BET, so at a TV network, in a department where it was just me and somebody else who was pushing forward the mobile side of the business, which was like a new thing at that point. And so all of the kind of stints that I had leading up to this were kind of smaller, either companies or departments that were trying something new in the entertainment space. And that really kept me having a very healthy eagerness to unlock the next thing and keep learning and stay at the pulse of what users want, right? And so while I was at YouTube, it was, of course, very clear to me that we were very, very good at allowing a creator to share a message with their audience. But it also was clear that there's a lot happening in the audience that was going underutilized, right? It's like they can just comment or like or, leave a heart, right? And these are very small transactions that don't leverage the full passion of the fan. And they also are the same across whether somebody is a casual fan or whether they're a super fan. And it's like, that shouldn't be the case. There should be levels to this where we can be able to unlock what exactly the story is and the reason why you press that heart in the first place, right? What are ways that you want to connect with other audience members besides just going, crazy in the comments, right? How can we connect these people who are bonding so much with the creator that they're watching on screen? And what are those reasons? And how can we make those connections even more exponential and additional bonds there? And so this seemed like such an open space for me, which is what compelled me and pulled me to explore starting Fave on my own. As you can imagine, there was a lot of, should I just start this at the company? Like, how can I leave such a safe, position and go out and do my own? I have a 3-year-old now running around here. I, don't come from a background where I can just fall back on the parents' money and all of this stuff. So it was a huge risk for me, but it actually was the best thing that I have done, because it showed me that if I was willing to leave such a comfortable place like that, I must be so passionate about it, and it must be that worth it. And that passion has pushed me to have it not be, if it doesn't work out, it's okay. It's like, it's working out. Therefore, I have to excel and motivate myself and my team to push forward no matter what happens. And so I think it's a very healthy kind of state to be in. I'll just add also that on the personal side, I used to be a super fan growing up. And so, of course, that mindset of, printing out, wasting all the ink in my printer just to have like different unique photos and cover my whole wall and have his name spread across my room and have a password before you entered my room with his name, and just knew how many freckles he had, just like everything I was obsessed, right? And so I understand the mindset of the fan, and that sympathy and empathy allowed me to also say, like, these fans deserve much more than they're getting right now. And so all of those kind of paths are what led me to start Fave.
Before I get to the next question, I have to ask who you were such a big fan of when you were growing up. Whose freckles did you count?
Whose freckles was it? I was obsessed with Eminem.
Oh my God, me too.
No way.
Yes, I did. In ninth grade, we had to do a PowerPoint presentation in my tech class, and I did it of Eminem.
Oh, look at that. Okay, so see, you and I now are just bonded completely. It's like, now I know another side of you.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. Yeah, I was like backwards E's all over my backpack, just like cell phone kit, just everything. Yeah, I know every battle. I watched 8 Mile every night. Like, yeah, you and I are bonded for
That
life
is
now.
so funny. That is such a random thing to connect over. Okay, so for people who like they want to do something in the tech space, but they maybe haven't done this before and they don't have the experience that you have had, could you walk us through some of the really practical early steps that you took to validate the idea and feel confident enough to leave a place like, Google to start your own company to pursue the idea?
Yeah, of course. I'd say without question, it's going and speaking to users in your market, right? This, I think a lot of people say, okay, I need to kind of hide out in my room and, be in Post-its and notebooks and write out a grand plan. It's like, no, it's not about that. If you don't know what you want to do, if you have a sense that this certain space needs innovation, or you have a very specific idea and you want to go out and validate it, so anywhere on the spectrum, either way, go out and talk to users, because I often like to say users are your boss. It's like those are the ones that you need to be impressing. Those are the ones that you need to be serving, right? And really talking to them, understanding their needs, asking why they feel that they need this certain thing, why current solutions aren't working for them. And just kind of, again, that very tactical tip is if somebody tells you something, ask why like 5 more times. And then you really get down to the root of kind of the value that somebody is seeking, and then can innovate based on that, right? And so can say, okay, it really feels like people just want a better way to connect with somebody who they feel understands them, right? Instead of like something that would be kind of higher level than that, which is like, oh, I find that I don't have a lot of followers on Twitter or something, right? And so really unpacking these kinds of things, or if you want to start like a physical product, right? It's like taking other physical products around, asking them why they love it, and then asking them, what's frustrating about it, or how come you're not using it every day when they recommend you use it every day, or, things like this, right? Really getting down to the root. And that gives you your roadmap right there, right? It's like, especially when you're stuck, going out and hearing these people articulate their concerns is, again, by far the best, fastest, most efficient way to unlock many features that you should build. And after then, it's just a matter of prioritizing them based on the innovations that you want to bring to the table, the depth of pain that people had when sharing them, how frequently they share them, and how much you feel that your unique take on this can solve it that well. But without question, talk to users. When in doubt, or even if you're not in doubt, talk to users.
That's great advice. In a really practical sense, does that mean you are sending emails, you're DMing, you're outreaching in that way to schedule calls? Are you doing Google Forms or MailChimp surveys? Like, what kind of tools are you using to kick off that process and gather that information?
Yeah, all of the above. But I would say that the best thing to do is going to where they already are and talking to them how they talk to each other. So if people are on social media, like sending them a survey through email isn't going to be the best way to get a bunch of engagement from them. Perhaps DM them, right? And say like, hey, I saw that you're doing X, Y, and Z. This is exactly the kind of person that I'm aiming to reach to provide an even better solution. I would love to pick your brain around ways that we can make this work best for you, right? Or you're doing this thing that I want to formalize. Like, can you help me figure out the best way to formulate this, right? And as you can imagine, people are likely flattered by the outreach and the notice that they have, that oftentimes even people on my team would still say like, oh, should we reach out to this fan and tell them that we liked their thing? It's like, yes, of course we should let them know that we found this thing amazing and we want to feature it on our platform, right? And so even if you feel like you're asking them for a favor or you're doing something for them, oftentimes people like to share their opinion, they like to share their perspective, and the fact that they're wanted for that means a lot. So always remember that it's not just you begging people to do things, but rather kind of gaining this kind of trusted set of people that will likely be some of your strongest users and advocates and cheerleaders to get other users to come aboard to your product or your service.
So you've done this user research, you're feeling good about the idea. What were the next steps? Was it about finding funding? Was it about scraping together some tools to kind of get an MVP up? Were you looking for an engineer? What happened next?
Yeah, I think I can share my order, which is not the typical order, but it worked for me, which is I didn't go find funding first. I didn't go find a technical co-founder first. And these, especially the technical co-founder, are things that people are like, that's step zero for a lot of people. I, yes, worked at this tech company, but I'm not an engineer. I didn't know how to code. I wasn't the person who it's like, oh yeah, me and my roommate in college, like, let's just like, we happen to be a great business and engineering duo. Let's go start a business together. It wasn't that. Again, I'm, sitting in my house with my kid and my husband, who's like not a tech person at all. He does like concerts and stuff. Coming up with this concept that I need to get off the ground and don't have a way personally to do it. So what I instead did was reach out to development shops, like development agencies, to see if I could work with a team of engineers to get my thoughts down on paper and in an app, right? In a MVP, so that I can use that to go out and validate to the users that I have been talking to whether or not this was in fact what they were doing and what they were wanting. And it didn't start from okay, let's dive right into a solution. It was a very iterative process of first these wireframes, and then these mocks, and then this, where we kept taking it back to the user to understand what to do next. So that was my first step. After then, I made the first public mention of what I was doing at a conference. And that conference, I ended up winning a Startup of the Year. And so that attention from that helped spirit a funding round that followed that. And so it was really the vision that carried forward being able to find funding. And then after that is when I found a technical co-founder. And so again, usually it's the opposite order that you do these things in. But I think what pushed this particular vision forward with Fave is that we truly were passionate about what we were doing. We had a clear vision and process and approach of how we were going to do it. Even if the product wasn't built yet, we didn't have some crazy engineer working with us to do it. So I think people believed in that. And I would say making sure that you have that clear articulation of what you want to build can take you so much further than some of those other factors, actually.
Oh, that's a really interesting approach. When you talk about users that are part of that test group that you're going back to for feedback, how many users are in that group and what do you recommend as a kind of a good size?
So of course it depends on the kind of product that you're building, but I would say, honestly, a small trusted group is best. I would say specifically a sweet spot is between 6 and 8 users, where after then, some of it can become diminishing returns. You see some patterns there, or it can get way too confusing of many, many, many different directions to go. You don't know how to weigh them out. And so for the people that you're talking to on a regular basis for each kind of thing you're finding, I would say having that focused discussion be with that 6 to 8 number is a good one. When you want to do things like surveys or things with more volume, then of course that quantity to make something statistically significant is of course much more stronger there. So that could be up to the 1,000 kind of number. But sometimes those things are hard or expensive to get started with. There's sites, there's usertesting.com, and there's other things that you can do to get surveys out there. But you really need to make sure that it has to be something that's quantitative, like general trends of what people do in certain circumstances. But anytime you want to test a specific concept that you have built and hear people articulate answers with the nuances behind them, I would suggest having these kind of smaller quantity in-person meetings. Because if somebody, the way somebody says yes can be like, yeah, or like, yes, or like, yeah, it's like all of those won't come across in a survey, right? And so those sessions and those unpacking that feeling, I think, is much more valuable than, having 800 more of those same answers.
When I think about creating a community for superfans or for fandoms, I think about, how massive that market size must be. How did you decide to kind of constrain that market to that first specific fandom that you launched to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, frankly, this came because of what I've been talking about this whole time of speaking to users. The first few users that we talked to, actually, the first user we talked to was a Taylor Swift fan. And then from there, it was, oh, I want to introduce you to my friend who is also a Taylor Swift fan because I think she would like this. And then that gave us a network of people in that fandom. So it was a natural extension for us to continue on with this fandom. It also had the aspects of what we were looking for. And this is the same with the BTS Army, right? These like two mega fandoms, why start so big? They had these aspects of a self-sustaining community where even if the artist isn't, diving in or involved, they were still connecting with each other, desiring to, again, unpack Easter eggs and, things like this. And so that was important to us to be able to kind of quickly understand what was going on. The other thing that was attractive was the volume of fans that we could gain data from so that we could efficiently iterate, right? It's like the more people that we had using what we did, the quicker we're able to say, yep, that works. It looks like people love that feature. Oop, looks like that bet was wrong and we need to change that, right? And so that was another thing as well. So there are a couple other nuances there, but I think those were the attractive things. But it all started with the network of users that we had built up front.
Okay. And how are you thinking about acquiring new users now? What kind of things are working for you?
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing that we're seeing is that while we have relationships and investors that are like these major labels and artist teams and things like this, we actually aren't using them for our acquisition approach. Instead, we're using and partnering directly with the fans. And so we have been partnering with fan influencers, as we call them, that are kind of known within their fandom, who sometimes have their own followings and their own respect and clout and appreciation by the fandom that, sometimes we've seen in, let's say, a virtual meet and greet where they're connecting with each other. A fan will stop it and can recognize another fan that's there because they are happy to be in their presence, right? It's like, oh my gosh, Megan, like, it's amazing to meet you. And so there are these fans out there that sometimes they are recognized for, let's say, they've been to a bunch of concerts before, or they got a ticket to the Grammys from the artist and they got to meet them there, or they've been inside the artist's house, right? Like these moments where these fans have been recognized. Or it could be that they've started an initiative themselves where they started a dance studio dedicated to the artist, or they've started like a cooking class or a research report, right? We've seen things like this. And so these folks who have this ingrained trust with the fandom is where we're leaning the most to aim to pull them in. And so as that extends to other people's businesses, it's just finding these authentic ways to engage with the people who are in the community that you're aiming to reach, right? And so it's not just influencer marketing and kind of paying somebody to try your product, but rather establishing bonds with these people to understand how it works for them and having them truly, truly, naturally extend your brand to everyone else because they love it so much or they see its benefit for the broader community, etc. There's other tactical things, right? Like referral codes and invite codes and like scavenger hunts and like things that we're doing there. But I'd say the biggest cornerstone of our strategy is really getting these trusted relationships and having other people's trust kind of fold within that.
Great. And I always just love to ask like how your just day to day has changed since you shifted from working for someone else to working for yourself.
Yes, that's a great question. It's a funny thing now to ask because that transition happened during the COVID timeline, the work from home timeline. And so it's like I was already working from home when that happened. So there's like what changes in your routine, and then there's also what changes in your mindset, right? What changed in my routine is me truly being able to work on my own schedule, which I found I'm frankly working much more efficiently, not less, but efficiently, when I can say, these are the things that I find important that I uniquely can contribute to as a CEO, and then empower my team in order to help push those things forward, right? As a win-win. You get the ownership and the autonomy to push those strategies forward. And I have my time reserved on the things that matter, again, uniquely for the pushing along the business, right? The funding, the hiring, right? Additional resources, the vision, making sure that people are course correcting there, et cetera. And so from a time perspective, I spend the mornings with my daughter to get her ready and set up for the day. I then kind of look into what are the key priorities from the night before. I'm the kind of person that's not like, oh, I put my phone away at 7 p.m. I'm on my phone until the minute I fall asleep. I even peek at it if I wake up for a second, which is terrible. But I know that even if I go to sleep going like, okay, top 3 things tomorrow are these, this, and that, obviously I'm not going to forget. I wake up and I forget, just to make sure that I write those things down and do that. But it's really just that efficiency of working. And I'll also point out on the mindset side, because as I shared in the very beginning, that I am working on this thing that I am wholeheartedly so passionate about pushing forward, the conviction that comes behind each of your tasks has been a big shift from before. Obviously, I loved what I did before when I was at Google, but there's a difference when it's yours and when it's kind of your butt on the line to make it happen. It's not if the project fails, it's okay, we'll just find another role. It's like your livelihood behind this. And so it makes every single decision, every single turning point, every person that you hire, every partner that you make, 100 times more critical to get it right. And so you making sure that you don't kind of sleep on a decision or sit back on certain things is much more powerful. So your level of engagement into each meeting that you're in and each email that you send, et cetera, is of high importance. So an efficient but very targeted way to spend your day.
And the last thing that I ask everyone who comes on the show is just to share a resource. It could be a book, a podcast, a community that you're part of, something that's helped you maybe become a better leader yourself in your business, or that's helped you on a very specific technical part of the growing the company.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. I think I come from a product background, and so I've found that that was my last roles before I started the company. Before then, I wasn't doing product, but I would say that in the transition that I had to product was that one of the ways that I found most clear to articulate the vision, which, as I shared, is the most important thing that I found worked to my benefit as a founder. And so I would recommend Product School, which is an online course where different product leaders from across various companies, big, small, etc., talk about different topics around product management and defining vision, talking to users, building metrics, etc., right? Dealing with stakeholders, just so many things. And I think even if that's not your job title, it's extremely useful skills for any leader who wants to push forward a vision or a team should learn. So product school would be my recommendation.
That's a great recommendation. I haven't heard that one before. I've actually just written it down on my notebook to take a look at. Jacquelle, thank you so much for coming on the show and for being so forthcoming with all of your insights. Not everyone is as open and forthcoming, so I really appreciate it when people get real and give really tactical advice.
Of course, you have to. I wish everyone the best out there. Just start, do it, dive in unapologetically, and I cannot wait to see what comes out of it.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey everyone, it's Jasmine again. I'm just popping in to say thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this show, the best way to support us is to drop a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. See you at the next episode. Bye.